This is a 5 News special presentation. The 2020 race for governor, Democratic debate, featuring candidates Ben Salango, Dr. Ron Stallings, and Stephen Smith, moderated by Josh Croup.
Good evening. The campaign and election seasons have turned virtual. Tonight's debate is no different. We're joined by 3 candidates seeking the Democratic nomination for governor of West Virginia. In alphabetical order, let's meet them. Kanawha County Commissioner Ben Salango, community organizer and child advocate from Kanawha County, Stephen Smith, and state senator from Boone County, Dr. Ron Stallings. The candidates have been made aware of the rules for tonight's debate. We'll start in reverse alphabetical order for their opening statements. Senator Stallings, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, WDTV, for hosting this virtual debate. I'm Dr. Ron Stallings, and I'm running for governor because I see every day families and West Virginians suffering. Coronavirus has impacted every West Virginian, not only from a health standpoint, but from an economic standpoint. As a physician of 34 years, internal medicine and geriatrics, and being in the Senate for 14 years, having served as chairman of the Senate Health Committee for 8 of those years, I feel that I'm uniquely qualified to lead our state during this challenging time. I'd like for you to check out my comprehensive plan on Stallings for West Virginia, Facebook, and StallingsForWestVirginia.com. For those of you who don't know me, I was raised by a single mother, and she developed stage 4 cancer and died when I was 17, and she was just 48 years old. My little town of Madison, West Virginia, wrapped its arms around me, and through various types of jobs, I was able to go to WVU undergraduate, Marshall Med School, and I did my internal medicine residency at Wake Forest University. I came back to my hometown of Madison. I've been there for 34 years as an internist and as a geriatrician. We've had some real challenges in our lives here in West Virginia over the years, floods, et cetera, but we've never had anything like this coronavirus pandemic. Here's my plan to address the coronavirus pandemic. I call it the 3 T's. Triage, which is where we are now. We're rationing. We're trying to amp up testing and personal protective equipment. And we need to invest in public health now. We have $1.25 billion and we're hoarding it. We're not using it. We need to use that to help us with the triage. Next is the transition and support. We must help our small business and entrepreneurs.
Senator Stallings,
Yes.
Your 2 minutes is up. Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, your opening statement.
My name is Stephen Smith, and I hope to earn your vote as the next governor of West Virginia. This is not a normal time. More of our friends and neighbors have lost work in the last 2 months, 3 times as many as did during the recession of 2008. This is not a time for small ideas. These crises show who we are. They show the best of who we are and the worst. They show the people in this crisis who are pitching in, our friends and neighbors who are organizing food drives and mask drives. But they also show the worst of who we are, the people at the top who are profiteering off of the rest of us. Our campaign knows whose side it's on. We're the only campaign in this race that doesn't take corporate PAC money, no money from pharmaceutical companies, no money from out-of-state land holding companies. We belong to the people of this state. We're the only campaign with a unionized staff, the only campaign that visited your county and every other county at least twice over the last year and a half and built our platform from the bottom up. And when the pandemic struck, we put that field operation, more than 377 neighborhood captains, to work checking in on 37,000 of their neighbors on a weekly basis, not just about absentee ballots, but about where can I get food and medicine. That's the kind of government we can have, a government that belongs to and responds to the working people of West Virginia. It's time for a new deal, one that embraces big ideas like full cannabis legalization, a corporate crime and political corruption division, an end to corporate welfare so we can fund $150 million for small businesses and family farms. We must keep our wealth here, build our own state bank, and return a freedom dividend to the people of West Virginia. It is these bold ideas and the fact that we're endorsed by frontline nurses, by the Service Employees Industrial Union, by social workers that has led
Mr.
us
Smith,
to be winning
thank
in
you
every public poll.
very much. Your 2 minutes is up. Commissioner Ben Salango, your 2-minute opening statement.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm Ben Salango, and I'm running for governor because West Virginia needs new leadership. I want to start off by thanking all those on the front lines, those that are battling the COVID-19 pandemic, our healthcare workers, our first responders, all those who are fighting every single day to keep us safe. Thank you. But after this pandemic subsides, we need a leader who's going to rebuild our economy. We need someone who's forward thinking, who can rebuild our workforce and get our people back to work. We need a governor who will show up, work hard every single day for all of West Virginia. Someone who will always put public service ahead of self-service. Someone who actually wants this job rather than just the title. As a lawyer for over 21 years, I've always fought for working families and stood up for the little guy. I've always stood up for those that have been forgotten and those that have been ignored. As a county commissioner and a small business owner, I've created jobs and diversified the economy, including areas hardest hit by the decline of coal. And I've worked hard with our first responders as county commissioner to make sure that we are keeping families safe throughout the valley. I've proven I can get things done. And that's why I'm honored to have over 26 labor endorsements, including the AFL-CIO, firefighters, Sheriff's Association, operating engineers, school service personnel, and many more. They are supporting me because they've seen what I can do as county commissioner and as a small business owner. Look, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I was taught early that you have to work hard every single day to create opportunities. And that's why I value a hard day's work. I've done it my entire career. And now, more than ever, we need a governor who's going to roll up his sleeves and get to work. I'm Ben Salango, and like you, I've had enough of the empty talk and the broken promises from career politicians. It's time to get things done for all of West Virginia, and I'd be honored to have your vote.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. We will now get to the question and answer portion of this debate. Again, your responses will be limited to 90 seconds. First, the number of West Virginia coronavirus cases and deaths remain far below those of our neighbors. As our state continues to reopen, how would you rate the current administration's handling of the pandemic in West Virginia? And would you have done anything differently? Let's begin with Commissioner Salango, then we'll go to Mr. Smith and Senator Stallings.
You know, the time to plan for a serious issue like this is not 3 or 4 months after it starts. The time to plan is weeks and months and years in advance. And in Kanawha County, as commissioner, that's what we've been doing. We were the first to test all of our nursing home residents. We were the first to start testing all of our daycare workers. We're out testing in drive-up locations for the African-American community, which has been hit the hardest by this pandemic. And so we're doing everything we can to be proactive, not reactive. We made sure that our first responders were protected with not just a backup plan, but a backup plan in case we had any of them go down. And so we've worked hard in Kanawha County to create policies and protocols that, quite frankly, the state has adopted after we did it. And we did that by forward thinking and being prepared.
Mr. Smith.
Our campaign is a little different. We don't think that one governor, one leader is the answer. We think the people have the answers. So the things we would have done different in response to this are to serve the working people of this state in a way that this governor simply has not. If you want to know how he's doing, ask the tens of thousands of workers and small businesses who have been left in the dust. This is what happens in a crisis in West Virginia. Those in charge try to convince us that we have to choose between our health and our bank accounts. We don't. That if instead we go after those who have been robbing us forever, we can have paid sick days. We can have a safe at home plan that's for real. We can support telehealth and frontline workers. We can make it so that no matter your skin color, you have access to the healthcare you need, not just during a pandemic, but 365 days a year. If you want to know how we're going to govern, I want to ask you to look at how we campaign. Right now, there are 377 of our campaign volunteers serving as neighborhood captains, checking in on their neighbors. This is not an empty offer. If you're watching right now and you can't get through to the help you need, call me directly, 304-610-6512. I know I don't have every answer, but I know that collectively we can find the answers to help you out, and collectively we'll build the state we need that serves all of us.
And Senator Stallings.
Yes, so I think the governor stumbled out of the box a little bit, but once he got Kathy Slimp and Clay Marsh on board, I think they're doing a better job now. There are some very big holes, however. I've been contacted by my constituents who basically say, look, I have a debit card from the unemployment compensation, but the amount is still zero. And so we just have to, again, push out to these people that really need this the most. We have inadequate testing. We have inadequate personal protective equipment. And so as we open up, I have real legitimate concerns, I think. The other thing is, prior to all this, we've cut public health. I voted against it, spoke against it, but there's 300 public health workers in West Virginia now, and there was 800 10 years ago. So we have to get these people back on the front lines and doing the epidemiology, et cetera. Like I mentioned, there's the triage, the transition, and then we need to use these federal dollars the best way possible so that we can position West Virginia for the best possible case, because we are in the middle of right where we need to be with geography. We will be a destination location for manufacturing and business, so we need to bring our manufacturing back home.
Thank you, gentlemen. Because of the pandemic, the West Virginia Center on Policy and Budget estimates the state's shortfalls could top $3.5 billion through fiscal year 22. If elected, you would likely face a budget deficit on your first day in office. What is your plan to reverse that deficit and replace that lost revenue? And would you support tax increases to do so? Mr. Smith, we'll start with you, then we'll hear from Senator Stallings and Commissioner Salango.
Thanks so much for this question. It's absolutely crucial that we build new revenue into our government. And it's absolutely crucial that that not come from small businesses and working people, which is where it's been coming up until now. We're the only campaign that has a plan to increase the severance tax. We're the only campaign that has a plan to increase the excess acreage fee so that out-of-state land holding companies finally pay their fair share. The only campaign that has a plan for a wealth tax and a plan to end tax breaks to out-of-state corporations. We can have a government that is wealthy, one that has enough money for roads and schools and bridges and broadband as soon as we stop allowing ourselves to get robbed. We also have a plan to create a state bank in West Virginia and access federal funds. This is something available through the CARES Act. I hope my opponents will also back this plan if elected. We need capital that's in the hands of the people of West Virginia that can return a freedom dividend to our folks. The same way Alaskans enjoy their wealth from oil, we can enjoy ours from coal and other fossil fuels.
Senator Stallings.
Thank you. Well, Moody's says that we may well be $1.6 billion in the red from a $4.5 billion budget. So we absolutely can't put that on the backs of West Virginians, and we can't cut government anymore. We do have a rainy day fund that would help cushion the blow. However, what we need to do is strategically invest in broadband and use our the resources from the federal government in the best way possible. Investing in education, infrastructure, and then being able to grow our economy and make this the destination location for manufacturing, for technology jobs. People want to come to West Virginia for a good reason. It's strategically located, it's beautiful, it's a great place to live, work, and play. And so we just have to have everything ready for when people start reshoring these jobs, bringing manufacturing back home. It needs to come to West Virginia via post-mine land sites and infrastructure investment.
And Commissioner Salango.
You know, the first thing that we have to do is spend the $1.25 billion that's been allocated by the federal government wisely. Sitting back on it, just like they did the RISE program, just like they did the Roads to Prosperity money, isn't doing anything for anyone. We need to get that money out there to our businesses. We've got to make sure that they survive this. Those are the ones that's going to produce the revenue. Those are the ones that will bring us out of this shortfall. And so we have to use that money wisely, but we can't sit on it like the failed RISE program and the road bond program. So we have to get it out there. The only way to increase revenue, there's two ways. You either increase taxes or you increase the number of revenue sources. I'm not in favor of increasing taxes. I'm not in favor of putting the burden on hardworking people and small businesses. So we have to diversify and bring more revenue sources in. You do that by focusing on West Virginia in regions. You focus on what each region of West Virginia does best. You make sure that you focus on small businesses, just like I've done here in Kanawha County by creating programs that actually start and support small business, like the UCAN program, starting businesses in areas that, quite frankly, businesses hadn't started in many years. And so you have to think outside the box to generate new revenue streams, not put the burden on the backs of the taxpayers.
And Commissioner Salango, a quick 30-second follow-up for you. You mentioned that $1.25 billion from the federal government. You've been critical of the governor's decision not to spend that money. Now, he says he's waiting to see if Congress will give the okay to backfill the state's budget. Do you believe it would still be the wrong decision to hold on to that money if Congress ultimately says states can use that money to backfill budgets?
It is absolutely wrong to sit on the money and try to use it to backfill the budget if Congress hasn't approved it. And all he's doing is keeping it out of the hands of hardworking West Virginians and small businesses when it should be out there. Congress hasn't passed that yet. He's sitting on the money and trying to backfill a budget to make up for the shortfall. The fact of the matter is you need to take a portion of that money and get it out there now and get it into the economy. If you truly want to boost the economy, get the money out there. Put it in the hands of small businesses through emergency loans and otherwise to boost the economy.
We have seen the importance of access to health care during this pandemic, especially in rural communities. But Fairmont Regional Medical Center in our area is just one of many rural hospitals across the nation forced to close their doors in recent months. Simply put, how do you plan to keep other community hospitals in the state, many of which face financial uncertainties from closing their doors? Senator Stallings, let's start with you, then we'll go to Commissioner Salango and end with Mr. Smith.
First of all, during the next 4 to 8 years, there's going to be incredible healthcare reform, payment reform. This fee-for-service model that we have right now is not going to work in the future. The bottom line is, out of the 1.7, 1.8 million West Virginians, 1.1 to 1.2 are insured by some type of government-paid insurance. And so Medicare, there's 400 and some thousand Medicare recipients. When you bill $1, you get something like 48 cents. Medicaid is worse than that, and PEI is worse than that. So one of the things that we could use better are the Medicaid dollars, because every dollar is matched either 3 to 1 or 9 to 1 by the federal government. And so, we just have to pay the fair share. But I can tell you, in the next 4 to 8 years, this whole healthcare reform issue is going to be big. You want someone in there that has a patient-centered approach to it and has experience in health policy. That would be me.
Commissioner Salango.
This issue didn't start during the election season. This has been going on for a long time now. Rural hospitals have struggled. You've seen them close, OVMC, Fairmont. We've had problems in southern West Virginia as well. And so this has not just developed. This has been going on. The problem is you're seeing fewer private pay insurers, those good UMWA benefits, the other private insurance, fewer people have those and are relying more on Medicaid and other state and federal sources, which are only paying about 30 cents on the dollar. Quite frankly, it's not even paying the expenses of the hospital. So you have to change the structure. We have a comprehensive plan, rural healthcare plan, on my website, bensalango.com, which changes the payment structure from individual visit structure to a global payment system. They started using it in Pennsylvania, global payment, and it's been successful. They started in 2018, they've expanded it in 2019 and 20. West Virginia needs to follow that model. The plan is out there. We need to make sure that our legislature and our governor moves this plan forward to save our rural hospitals.
And Mr. Smith.
Our campaign also supports a global payment model as a way to get revenue to rural hospitals. But let's be honest with each other. The healthcare problem is much deeper than just hospital closings. There is no one in West Virginia who is getting good care at a good price because we have a system that is accountable to health insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies instead of patients. The difference with our plan is that it was written by patients. It was written by doctors, and our plan comes from people who are directly impacted and harmed by the system. We're the only campaign that won't take a penny from pharmaceutical companies or health insurance companies. The only campaign that supports Medicare for all, because we know what it's like to need care and have to make that decision of whether or not you can even go to the doctor because you're afraid of the cost. We need a fundamentally new healthcare system, and we can fight for it, but only if we're not accountable to health insurance companies and hospital companies and pharmaceutical companies.
Overdoses continue to be a problem in several West Virginia communities. As the state tackles the opioid crisis, some communities are seeing surges in meth and other drugs. How do you plan to address substance abuse in our state? Let's begin with Commissioner Salango, then go to Mr. Smith and end this one with Senator Stallings.
West Virginia, unfortunately, has led the nation in opioid dependence, substance abuse, and opioid deaths. Now we must lead the nation in recovery. We've put together a comprehensive plan called Recovery First that focuses on long-term treatment. One of the problems we're having now is folks who have substance abuse problems, they go into short-term treatment, they're in for 28 days, and then they're right back in the same environment that got them there in the first place. It's costing West Virginia $8.8 billion a year, $4,700 per West Virginian. We have to make this a priority. We have to make sure that there is long-term treatment options for West Virginians who are suffering and all of those families. We've got a comprehensive plan to do it. I did it by working with experts all over the United States to come up with this plan, and it will work.
Mr. Smith.
In West Virginia, we don't just have an opioid crisis or a substance use disorder crisis. We have a crisis of pain and trauma caused by years, generations of pain and trauma inflicted upon us by out-of-state corporations who are busy getting rich off of our pain and our work. The difference with our plan is that it was written by people in recovery. It was written by people on the front lines, first responders. And it is comprehensive, not just about treating people who are sick, but preventing the cycle of trauma that we see in schools and children. This is personal for me as a foster parent. It's personal for me with a wife who defends people who have been charged with crimes, but for the most part are just sick and need help. We can have a fundamentally different system for treating our overdose crisis, but only if we put the people at the front lines in charge of it, and only if we reject the influence of big pharmaceutical company money, which has been owning the response and getting rich off of us for too long.
And Senator Stallings.
Yeah, I too have a comprehensive substance use disorder and recovery plan with Stallings for West Virginia Facebook. I've also had extensive experience in passing legislation that would help turn the spigot off with regard to opioid use, prescription drug abuse, etc. We do have terrible adverse childhood experiences here in West Virginia brought on by poverty, social isolation. I'm the co-chairman of the West Virginia Public Health Caucus, and we tried to do a deep dive into that to try to help that. And we have to invest in our birth to 3 programs so that these children are ready to learn. Because we know that if a child has an adverse childhood score of 4, then they really do have problems and are more prone to addiction down the line. The payment system is all backwards in the substance use treatment, recovery, etc. I've voted for, and we've got wraparound services, the full continuum of recovery, including job training, housing, and reintegration into society and the workforce.
Mr. Smith, you mentioned being a foster parent, so we'll start this next question with you. With 7,000 children in foster care in West Virginia, how would you encourage new people to become foster parents to fill the need that currently exists? After Mr. Smith, we'll go to Senator Stallings and end with Commissioner Salango.
Great question. This is the fundamental difference between our campaign and most campaigns, are the people that you can't see on this debate right now. The foster parents and foster kids who helped write our Protect Children plan. The fact that we're endorsed not just by union nurses and service employees, but Planned Parenthood and Our Revolution, Queer Appalachia, people from all different walks of life, not just endorsing this campaign, but building our plans from the bottom up. The foster care crisis, like all the rest, isn't something that can be solved by 1 or 2 small tweaks. We have to add more money to support kinship parents. I actually, as a foster parent, don't think that the fundamental problem is that we need more foster parents. What we need are healthier, stronger families so that kids don't end up in crisis in the first place. And you can't get that without reorganizing our economy so that we stop robbing working people, so that we stop forcing families to take on 2 or 3 jobs just to be able to make ends meet. That's the only way we get to the root of this crisis.
Senator Stallings.
Over the past couple of years, we've tried very hard to reform our foster care system, realizing that it really had been overwhelmed. And due to some of the cuts, the draconian cuts to the DHHR, that left these up to 10,000 children homeless, 7,000 people in foster care. And those folks, unless they really have a built-up resiliency, tend not to do well later in life. So this past year, we were able to increase the amount of money that we're paying foster children. We've done a deep dive into the grand families and kinship care. I see that on a regular level in Boone County. And we just have to focus on it. I have a government council on children and families that would be in my cabinet to improve the communication between the education system, and the law enforcement, and the DHHR.
And finally, Commissioner Salango.
You know, this is an issue that's near and dear to me as well. I have my wife and I, we've been married for 19 years today. Happy anniversary. And we've also served as foster parents. I mean, we've seen this firsthand. And the real issue is, and she sees it every day, first as a prosecutor, now as a judge, but one of the biggest issues is you have to fix the underlying problem, which typically is substance abuse. We have a comprehensive plan for that. But the other thing you have to do is you have to pull all of the services related to children out of DHHR. DHHR, quite frankly, and this is not the fault of the employees, it's too big to function. And so my plan calls for a Bureau of Childhood Advocacy that's going to pull those functions out of DHHR so we can truly focus on children, so we can put children first. We want to make sure that we have a nurse and a social worker in every single classroom, or every single school rather, so they are communicating and working with the judicial system, with the parents, and with the teachers. Only when you do that will you truly have change in West Virginia.
Let's stay with kids and talk about their education. Did you support the education reform bill from 2019 that included the possibility of creating charter schools in the state? And how would you support public education? Let's start with Senator Stallings.
Thank you. First of all, I'm endorsed by the statewide West Virginia Education Association. The teachers in West Virginia know that I stood side by side with them, trying to help them, one, increase their wages to where they're competitive, semi-competitive in other states, and two, we fought to charter schools. We don't need to privatize education in West Virginia. We need to enhance public education so that everyone can get that good education. Certainly, as we go forward, I think broadband, with us being 45th in the country and so much things going on with virtual teaching, we absolutely have to invest more in broadband and that last mile, so that when kids can't go to school, they can at least have access to the classroom in that regard. So again, we have to have the Birth to 3 program. We have to have the wraparound services. I supported that. We can use federally qualified health centers to help with those wraparound services, the social workers, the nurses that we've talked about earlier. We need a workforce for that. We need to value these workers instead of just not paying them hardly anything and working them to death.
Commissioner Salango.
Everyone knows that the true path to prosperity starts in the classroom. And I'm against any program that pulls money out of public education, including charter schools. And we've seen it in other states that have passed charter schools where it leads to fraud and waste. And so I was against it. And that's why I've been endorsed by AFT Kanawha County, AFT Cabell County, Marshall County, Fayette County, Raleigh County, Roane County. They know where I stand on these issues. One of the problems that we have is that we're not compensating our educators, our school services personnel sufficiently. We need to make sure that we are attracting and retaining the best and the brightest and giving them the actual freedom to teach instead of having people at the Capitol micromanage them. You know, as a lawyer, I have a procedure book, an ethics book, and everything that I do in between is my professional judgment. We do not extend that same courtesy to educators. We micromanage them at the Capitol, and that needs to stop. We need to let teachers teach.
Mr. Smith.
The most important thing with regard to our education is to listen and follow the lead of our teachers and school service personnel, not just by giving them the freedom to teach in their own classroom, but to follow the lead in how they fought for the change the last 2 years. By coming together across party lines, they fought for and changed what was possible in education. The education reform bill was a disaster. But when you look at the people of West Virginia, you actually find that people agree. Everybody in West Virginia wants higher pay for teachers and school service personnel. Everyone we talked to, teachers and parents, wanted smaller class sizes. They wanted to end school consolidation. They wanted a lot less testing for our kids and a lot more hands-on education. We can have all of those things, but only if we do what our teachers and school service personnel did. We can't get there piecemeal. We have to go fight for a West Virginia that belongs to all of us. Like Senator Stallings and Commissioner Salango, our campaign has also been endorsed by a number of teachers groups, but we also have donations from more than 480 individual educators, more than 10 times as many donations from educators as all of our opponents combined. And you'll see that throughout our campaign. We are funded by the people of West Virginia who want badly a fundamentally different kind of government. And that's why we can win it. Not because one guy has a good idea, but because we have people from all walks of life coming together and demanding it.
Now, something all three of you agree on, and most, if not all, West Virginians agree on, is we need more access to broadband internet. But how specifically do you plan to increase the access to the internet to all corners of the state? Let's start with Commissioner Salango.
People have been talking about expanding broadband for 10 years now, yet it still isn't happening. We have to make it an actual priority. As we see now, our teachers are trying to teach our children via internet. We're trying to do Zoom calls and via internet. We have to expand broadband, not just for education. We have to expand it for small business owners. You know, you could do so much more in West Virginia. You could create so much more business and opportunities if we had reliable, affordable broadband throughout West Virginia. We have to make it a priority. The money is there. We have to use it to create infrastructure. We have to use as much federal dollars and grants as possible and quit talking about it and actually just get it done.
Mr. Smith.
In West Virginia, we don't just have a broadband problem, we have a monopoly problem. We are not going to change our broadband problem in West Virginia without a fight. The reason why things are the way they are is because we have a handful of monopolies in West Virginia that control the entire market. So they're going to give you the worst service they possibly can for the highest price. I'm proud of the fact that our campaign refuses to take money from corporate PACs or from frontier executives because we want to be able to go to battle with these people. We're the only campaign with a corporate crime and political corruption division, the only campaign that is taking broadband and putting it under the purview of the Public Service Commission, turning broadband into a true public utility, and the only campaign that supports a broadband middle mile so that local internet service providers can compete for your business. Is that going to be easy? No, if it were easy, it would have happened. We have to be ready to take on a fight, and to do that, we have to have a campaign and candidates up and down the ballot who won't take money from corporate donors.
Senator Stallings.
Yes, the broadband issue is real. It's something that we have to, again, have great focus. There's going to be so much money coming out from the Department of Education, USDA, and we have to have a strategic plan for how we use that. Right now, most schools and most federally qualified health centers have access to good broadband, good internet. We have to push that last mile out. So I have spoken with the folks in Doddridge County, and they have a plan to basically have the entire county covered and use their STEM classes to the students to teach our seniors how to use the internet. And I will have a broadband director in the governor's office and focus on this. We have to share utilities. When we build a road, we have to have the conduit so that future utilities for broadband, et cetera, can be laid down at the same time.
Now, one concern we continue to hear about every day, even during the pandemic, is the roads. Quite simply, what is your plan to fix West Virginia roads? Mr. Smith, we'll start with you, then go to Senator Stallings, and end this one with Commissioner Salango.
What a great question. We have to get to the root of the matter. Again, our roads problem isn't just a roads problem. It's a corruption problem. The problem we're dealing with is we have a corrupt division of highways that over the last 20 years has shifted more than 1,000 jobs away from state government. We've actually cut 1,000 jobs in state government, roads jobs, and instead farmed that out. And privatization only works for the private companies that are getting rich off of it. It doesn't work for you and me. It doesn't work for highway workers who deserve the raise that they were promised by state government that haven't been delivered on. And we can have roads that work. As we said before, right now, before this pandemic hit, was the wealthiest time in West Virginia history. If we keep the wealth here instead of sending it out, we can have decent roads. If we trust our engineers and union highway workers instead of farming out jobs and letting people get rich off of the public dole, we can have decent roads. I hope folks will take a look at our roads plan written by highway workers and drivers and first responders at wvcan'twait.com. And if you don't like it, if you think it can be better, contact me directly. That's how we're building this platform.
Senator Stallings.
West Virginia roads have been incorporated as state roads all over the state of West Virginia. So for our size, we have a huge number of roads that the state has to take care of. Historically, the federal government spends the most money on our roads. We have to, again, have a strategic plan and focus on our secondary roads. We have to do our maintenance. A lot of the problem with roads frequently is water. So when we don't do the ditching and focus on things like that, then the roads erode and you have major problems with that. So we will focus on secondary roads, maintenance. I agree that we've farmed out so much of our road maintenance and road building, and we need to bring some of that back into the state, centralize it, and focus on maintenance, including ditching, paving. Believe me, I mean, there's so many patches that you just thump all the time. We need to get back to our strategic paving and improve it from the 23 years that it is now to more frequent.
Finally, Commissioner Salango.
Back when I could travel the state, we were all over. And the most consistent complaint that I heard, whether it was in the Eastern Panhandle, Northern Panhandle, Southern West Virginia, didn't matter, was roads and infrastructure. We have potholes, we have holes in our bridges, yet we passed over $1 billion to fix it. And what happened to that money? It sat there. It sat there like the RISE program money. It's sitting there like the $1.25 billion in COVID-19 federal assistance. It sat there. They were waiting to use it during an election year so that they could use it to get good poll numbers. And then we got hit with COVID. And so it's not being used. In fact, $50 million last summer was transferred for emergency road repairs, and half of that was used to pay off debt. So we need a governor who's actually going to focus on infrastructure. We need a governor who understands that the infrastructure is key to bringing in business. You know, as Kanawha County Commissioner, I've been on the forefront of economic development in Kanawha County. One of the biggest embarrassments is when you pick a CEO or an executive up at the airport to try to pitch them on West Virginia, is you're dodging potholes as you're driving them to the areas. And we've got to fix that. We've got to make sure that we fix our infrastructure. The money is there. We just have to use it wisely.
Now let's talk about something that is very near and dear to thousands of West Virginia families: coal. Essentially, what would a coal miner's family in West Virginia get from your administration? And while we're on the topic of coal, what is your plan to diversify the state's energy economy? Let's start with Senator Stallings, then we'll go to Commissioner Salango and end with Mr. Smith.
Well, I've spent my entire life in Boone County. At one time was the largest coal producing county in the state of West Virginia. I've seen what happens when the coal industry goes away or partially goes away. I see when we don't invest wisely with our coal severance tax dollars. And I urge the folks up in the north central West Virginia to think about that with their gas severance tax, whether it's a future fund or whatever. We didn't do it well in southern West Virginia, and it's come back to haunt us. Further, we do now have post-mine land sites to help diversify the economy. And there was a bill that I spearheaded that basically would give a business or manufacturing company a 50% tax credit if they would locate on a post-mine land site the first 5 years. It doesn't give away the farm forever, but it encourages initial development. We also, as a part of the coal industry, we have rare earth elements that were laid down at the same time. So these rare earth elements, I think, are our future because they're very rare and can be used in so many mechanisms. So again, I would certainly support, as I have all my life, coal mining families via healthcare, and also transition them into a more diversified economy using coal severance tax better in post-mine land sites.
Thank you, Senator Stallings. Commissioner Salango.
I have a history of people in my family working in the coal mines. When my family immigrated from Italy, they were sent to southern West Virginia and Raleigh County to work in the mines. My great-grandfather, my grandfather on both sides worked in the mines. There never will be a day when I turn my back on coal miners and those hardworking families, or the gas workers. And I won't support any candidate who's going to do that. I am in favor of creating other opportunities. So we have to make sure that we are in favor of all forms of energy without turning our backs on those industries, those families, those miners that created West Virginia. One of the things that I've done in Kanawha County was create employment opportunities in the most economically devastated area of the county, called the UCAN program. It's the Upper Kanawha Valley between Malden and all the way to the Fayette County line. And we've been able to do that by creating business opportunities where we turn the unemployed into entrepreneurs. It's been a tremendous success. A lot of those people have great ideas. They want to work. They have business ideas, but you have to give them opportunity through seed money and through business coaching. When you start a new business, you may not know how to do quarterly taxes or payroll. One of the things we do is provide business coaching. You could do that all over the state of West Virginia. You could create more small business in places where there's lack of economic opportunity.
Commissioner Salango, thank you. We end with Mr. Smith on this one.
We come from a tradition in our campaign that chooses the side of coal miners and their families over coal operators and coal executives. It's why we don't take money from big energy firms. We want to be accountable only to the people of the state, not out-of-state interests that have gotten rich off the people of this state. Our Coal Miners Bill of Rights was written by coal miners. So what you'll receive in our plan is a jobs guarantee, not the promise of training for some job that doesn't cover you or your family or doesn't even exist in your county, but a jobs guarantee. How do I know we can do it? Because our country has done it before during the last New Deal. We provide a black lung pension fund. Why? Because that's what coal miners wanted. And we're going to take back some of the wealth being stolen by out-of-state landholding companies in the form of a higher acreage tax on large landholders who are paying less in effective property tax than you are. When we do all of those things, when we raise the severance tax on natural gas, we can fund an energy economy and a jobs guarantee that lasts the next 100 years, not the next 2 or 3 years. We have to stop pretending that the interests of coal operators are the same as the interests of coal miners.
Gentlemen, it is prime census time, and West Virginia is projected to lose another representative in Congress due to population loss. What would you do to keep residents in the state and attract new ones to West Virginia? Commissioner Salango, let's start with you, then go to Mr. Smith and end with Senator Stallings.
For the first time since 1950, West Virginia is below 1.8 million people. We're the only state in the nation that has declined in population. The surrounding states have gone up 100%, 200%, yet we have continued to lose population. It's one of our biggest problems. Those who stay have even a bigger tax burden because the expenses are same. But the tax burden is shifted to those who are staying. We have to make sure that we expand vocational opportunities. When I came out of high school, if I could pay for college, I had that opportunity, or I could go to the coal mines. Those were my options. I went to college, paid for it myself. But for those that are coming out now, their options are Columbus, Charlotte. They have to move elsewhere if they're not going to college. We have to make sure that we create vocational programs and introduce them in middle school and permit every child who wants to participate in vocational in high school to have that opportunity. There simply aren't enough spots in those programs. Yet, when they graduate, there are jobs. There are plenty of jobs here for those people, yet they're not trained when they come out of high school, so they have to move. That's one way to stop the population decline.
Mr. Smith.
Yo, we're failing our kids. There's just no two ways about it. And the reason why we're failing our kids is because we let our politicians tell us that, well, if we keep sending wealth away from the state, then somehow our state is going to get wealthier. In fact, as we send our wealth away, we can't be surprised that our children leave with it. Ours is the only campaign with a comprehensive plan to keep that wealth here by shifting severance taxes, by shifting the tax burden from small businesses that pay their taxes to out-of-state companies that are dodging their taxes. When we keep our revenue here, we can fund, and you'll see it in our plans, a Take Me Home debt forgiveness plan to bring people back to West Virginia, capitalizing 3,000 small businesses per year to bring people back and diversify the economy. But we also have to make our state a welcoming place. Too often, if you don't have the right color of your skin or you're discriminated against because of whom you love, you don't feel welcome in West Virginia. We need a state that is unapologetic about welcoming people, no matter whom they love, no matter the color of their skin, no matter the God that they worship, or no matter their gender. We can build that government, but only if all of us come together.
Senator Stallings.
Yes, so I think this COVID is going to allow us to push the reset button. I think we have to. Again, we are strategically located within 5-hour drives of the major population of the United States. With our great natural beauty outdoors, with our recreation, with our adventure tourism, with the Bechtel Summit Resort in Fayette County, we need to capitalize on that. With investing in broadband so that people can work from home, we can reboot or get our manufacturing back from overseas so that we can, again, have these good high-tech and manufacturing jobs. The reason people leave is there's no jobs. It's simple. We have to have jobs. We have the quality of life. We have the rivers we can float in. And so we just need to have this strategic plan. We need to invest these federal dollars as efficiently and as good as we can. And we can do that. West Virginia is where people want to come in the post-pandemic. So now we just need to have the infrastructure in place and be ready for them and be welcoming. We should not be discriminating against anyone.
Gentlemen, finally, we're seeing a number of attack ads from the candidates running for the Republican nomination. Your ads so far have largely focused on your platforms and your history. If you would proceed to the general election against the nominee from the Republican Party and that candidate began running attack ads on you, would you respond with an attack ad on that candidate? We'll start with Mr. Smith on this one.
Let's talk about how a Democrat wins in 2020 in West Virginia. We're going to have to do three things, and none of those three things are attack ads. One, we're going to have to energize the Democratic base. Two, we're going to have to bring people back into the political process. who have felt pushed away for too long. And 3, we're going to have to win over folks who have never voted or would never consider voting for a Democrat. The way that we do those things is not with TV ads. The way we do those things is to do what our campaign has been doing from the beginning. More town halls than all of our opponents combined. Tens of thousands of conversations with our neighbors one-on-one, inviting people into our campaign with bold ideas, full cannabis legalization, a Mountaineer Service Corps, an end to corporate welfare to fund jobs for all. We can do those big things, make broadband a public utility. That's the only way we're going to win as Democrats in this election, and it's the only way we're going to win a government of, by, and for the people in West Virginia.
Senator Stallings.
Well, if I'm attacked, I have to answer that attack, but it doesn't mean I'm going to attack back. I mean, I've always, I've run 4 different times. I've been elected 4 times to the West Virginia State Senate in what a lot of people would consider Trump country. And so I know what big elections and how tough campaigns can be. So, and I frankly think between the 3 of us talking here, with my experience as 14 years in the Senate, 34 years as a physician and so much health policy, I feel that I can get elected in the fall. And I worry that the other 2 folks that are on here would have a problem in the fall, largely because of West Virginia's voters. We're a conservative state. People don't like socialism, frankly, and we have to have bigger ideas than transforming, frankly, a golf course into soccer fields. We have to think big. We have to coordinate our resources, and we have to have someone that knows how to pass a bill in the legislature and knows how to get bipartisan support.
Commissioner Salango, we'll go to you for your 90-second response. Then I want to get a 30-second rebuttal from Mr. Smith on that.
Well, I'm glad the senator brought up one of the projects that I created. My goal is to focus on the positive. My goal is to focus on positive, not just in the primary, but also the general. We need to point out what we've done. And one of the things that I did was took an old golf course that was losing $80,000 a year and turned it into an economic hub. It generates tens of millions of dollars a year. In fact, in the next 7 to 10 days, I'll be announcing another opportunity that's coming into the Shawnee Sports Complex that's going to generate $20 million a year. That all came from an idea. I sketched it out on a napkin at Adelphia Sports Bar on Capitol Street. I have other ideas, like the UCAN program. We were the first in Kanawha County, or in West Virginia also, to give 12 weeks paid family leave. We did hero pay for our first responders. We did hero grants for our volunteer firefighters. We made sure that our senior centers were running and that they had sufficient funding to be able to open back up. I've done a lot more than just create soccer fields. We've brought a lot of new money into the economy. We've supported small business. And quite frankly, if you really want to know what that's done, ask the small business owners, because overwhelmingly they're supporting it.
Thank you, Commissioner Salango. Mr. Smith, I'll end this with you. Real quick response.
Sure. I want folks who are watching this to think of someone you know who you don't think would ever vote for a Democrat. Maybe someone who you don't think is even going to vote at all. We have to bring that person into the political process, and petty attacks aren't going to do it. Small ideas aren't going to do it. We're going to need to present something fundamentally different to those folks. That's what our campaign is doing. So as you're thinking about that person, I want you to take down my phone number, 304-610-6512. Hand it to them. I want to hear what they're up to. I want to find a way for us to work with them.
Thank you.
This is how we're winning in all of the public polls. It's how we've raised more money than any
Thank
other
you, Mr.
candidate
Smith.
and
We
had
are
more
going
donations
to
than anyone who's ever run.
Thank you very much. We need to move on to closing statements now. We begin with Commissioner Ben Salango.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. West Virginia needs new leadership. We need someone who's going to show up, work hard every single day, and move West Virginia forward. We need someone with new, bold ideas, someone with a track record of success. I have a history of getting things done as a small business owner, also as a county commissioner, not just developing new industry and diversifying the economy, but also supporting small business, supporting workers, And that's why I have more endorsements than all other candidates combined. 26 labor endorsements, AFL-CIO, school service personnel, many, many more, operating engineers. This is the campaign that can move West Virginia forward. I'm not trying to disparage anyone else because they're all good people. I appreciate them sharing this debate with me tonight. If you want to learn more about my campaign, please log on to bensalango.com, and I would truly be honored to have your vote.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Smith.
I really appreciate this opportunity. I think the fundamental difference in our campaign is that I don't think I'm the answer to all of our problems. Our campaign doesn't believe that any one politician is the answer to our problems, that in fact, never in American history, never in West Virginia history, has one politician been the answer. It's going to take all of us. Our campaign spent the first year of our campaign recruiting 94 volunteer teams across West Virginia, 93 down ballot candidates, people of all different race and religious backgrounds, people from all different corners of the state to run together. And every one of us promised never to cross a picket line, never to take corporate cash, never to punch down, never to hide from a debate. Only if we work together, only if we demand something greater, are we going to get a government that works for us. Right now is 1932 all over again. And in 1932, in the heart of the Depression, it was hard to imagine that a New Deal was possible.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Your time is up. I appreciate it. Senator Stallings, we end with you.
As I watch what's happening to the great state of West Virginia and its people, with people leaving, healthcare being unaffordable, hospitals closing, and I think of the three of us up here. I have been elected 4 times. I've served as chairman of the health committee. I've spent 12 of the last 14 years on the finance committee. As your governor, I'll put together a bipartisan plan to expand broadband, invest in education and our teachers, and ensure quality health care. I'll support small businesses and entrepreneurs. I have relationships with both leaders of both parties in West Virginia, in the Senate, Republicans and Democrats, both sides of the House. I feel that with that, the governor's mansion and office will be used as a melting pot of ideas to bring people in, to fix our problems. I ask you to join my campaign at stallingsforwestvirginia.com, Stallings for West Virginia Facebook, and I humbly ask for your vote.
Thank you all. This concludes the 2020 Democratic Gubernatorial debate on WDTV 5 News. The state's primary election is June 9th. Good night.
This has been a special presentation by WDTV 5 News.